all here to celebrate Merle McCurdy. So I have a few slides I want to go through here. In Conneaut, spent his first 20 years in the Conneaut area. On the right is a picture of Merle and Foster at the Dean Avenue School in Conneaut. Here's Foster over here, and Merle's over here. When we talk about the middle years here, we have Merle and Foster with his mother and father, Evelyn and Roy, and a picture on the right, him at age 13 in the Conneaut school system. Graduated from Conneaut in class of 1931 and attended Western Reserve University School of Law, where he graduated in 1947. And on the right is his beautiful bride, Rosie. Brenda's going to kill me with this photo here, because this is her in pigtails here. But this is Rosie, Merle, Brenda, and Brenda's sister, Myrna. Photo on the left is Merle. He was an assistant Cuyahoga County prosecutor. He was also the first public defender appointed in 1960 in Cuyahoga County. And he was also, I believe, he was the first, in fact I know this, he was the first African American to work for our legal aid in Cleveland, and that's when legal aid acted as our criminal public defender. He was appointed in 1961 by John F. Kennedy as a U.S. attorney. He missed the distinction of being the first African American U.S. attorney by 1 month. John F. Kennedy appointed 2 African Americans, Cecil Poole and Merle McCurdy, first to, think about this here, think about this for a minute. 1961 it took before African Americans were appointed as U.S. attorneys in our federal system. Amazing. Merle was number 2. Merle was a true civil rights legend. Here we have a picture with him speaking at the NAACP convention in Atlanta, of all places. Back in 1962, and he's with Mr. Abernathy on our left, and obviously Martin Luther. It was a family that had a very long history, that faced discrimination as a slave, and perhaps lived in Ashtabula County. I don't know. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute here. We have such a family here, and that's why I'm so happy here as I get this next PowerPoint presentation together here. We're so honored here to have Howard McCurdy to talk about the McCurdy legacy, to talk about the history, as I mentioned, from this other side. And when you see this McCurdy legacy, you're going to note that Howard's not going to mention himself at all in this, and he should. Okay, he should. When I was researching Merle McCurdy and found that he was only the second African American to be appointed as a U.S. attorney, I kept on coming up to this guy named Howard McCurdy. Okay, I kept on constantly coming up. He is the second African American to be elected. African Canadian, excuse me, to be elected as a member of Parliament in Canada. Woo! I'm going to say this, I'm going to embarrass him. He's brilliant. He's a doctor. He's the first African Canadian, to receive tenure at a Canadian university and also to be a department chair. We have the pleasure of having someone who has been awarded the Order of Ontario and the Order of Canada. So if you think about in the U.S., if someone was awarded the Medal of Freedom, we have someone here that's won the equivalent of that here in Canada. And guess what? He's with us here tonight. And without further ado, I want to introduce everyone to Howard.
I don't know how I'm going to match the fantastic presentation that we've just heard. There are some aspects of African American history that were left out, but we will all leave those out today. I apologize for not being from Ashtabula. I am a proud Canadian. And I have to tell you that the McCurdys that you see here today, the descendants of the McCurdys that you see here today are descendants of the Canadian McCurdys, as we like to describe them. But we all come from Nasa McCurdy, who was a slave born in about 1763, who was manumitted in 1797 by one Rachel Kennedy. Nasa was an unusual man. He was a skilled carpenter and could write at the time that he was manumitted. So it is assumed that he probably worked for his own salary, returning a portion of that to his master and mistress at the time. But after he was manumitted, he bought about 119 acres of land in Pennsylvania, where he married...
I'd now like to call upon Brenda McCurdy Rhodes. Brenda is Merle's daughter, and she's going to read for us a speech that Merle wrote back in the 1960s, and I'll have her explain it, but all the way from Atlanta, Georgia. Brenda McCurdy Rhodes.
1962, okay, at 8:00 p.m., I don't know where I was at that time, okay, at a public meeting of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People at its national convention at Atlanta, Georgia. His work, and I'm just really honored to repeat the words that he said. Freedom is a precious commodity. It is precious because so few people possess it. It's never been handed voluntarily to anyone. Every individual, every nation, every race has fought for his or her freedom and its individual freedom since the beginning of time. Now ours is not, it's not a new plight. There's nothing unique about our situation. The Emancipation Proclamation released us from servitude, but did not give us freedom. Rather, it gave us a right to fight for freedom. It gave us the symbol, but not actually the status of freedom. Freedom is a commodity that is not cheap. We pay for it by vigilance and fortitude, by fighting injustice and protecting against invasion of our rights. Ours has not been an easy road, but hardships are not uncommon to us, and we have proved ourselves to be a hardy stock. It is good to know that we here in America have something operating in our favor that most people in the world don't have. It is probably the most potent, most powerful force ever devised by man, yet it is simple in its operation. We have the mighty power of the ballot. The majority of the Negroes, and I'm using the terminology that he used at the time, okay, are free to exercise this great power that is denied to virtually 3/4 of the population of the world. And by the grace of God, and I might add our Justice Department, this right will soon be universal. The struggle for this right to vote has been long, difficult, and sometimes violent. And any American who fails to exercise this prerogative commits a crime, not only against himself, but also against his fellow man. Every single vote is important because politics control everything in our lives, such as housing, economic standards, educational facilities, and my dad wrote a few little notes of other things that, came under politics. So he was really enthusiastic about this. Therefore, we want to elect those people who are fearless leaders and who will help correct the injustices that we suffer. Now, the greatness of this country is grounded upon democratic processes. Among these is the right to cast our ballots. Therefore, there's a built-in and inherent power that each of us holds in his hands to correct such evils as discrimination, overt acts of prejudice, and unfair employment. It is a fundamental truth that the requests of powerless people usually fall on deaf ears. It is those who wield influence that receive the fruits of politics. Now let us see how true this is. Our votes have elected Representatives Dawson from Illinois, you might remember these people, Powell from New York, and Diggs from Michigan, to the Congress of the United States, thereby giving us a voice in governmental policymaking, which is cool. Negroes have become elected to many of the state legislatures and to city councils in many cities throughout the land. For the first time in the history of this country, there are federal district attorneys, Cecil Poole of the Northern District of California, and myself of the Northern District of Ohio. All of you know Mr. Civil Rights himself, sometimes known as Thurgood Marshall, who was appointed to the Circuit Court of Appeals for the 2nd Federal District. The Negro vote during the national election of November 1960 swung the election in Illinois. It is perhaps significant that James Parsons of Chicago was appointed by the President as federal judge for the Northern District, Illinois, the first time a Negro has ever been appointed to a district judge. History tells us that Negroes had a part in the discovery and exploration of America. We have our roots here and have a tremendous stake in America. So we have good reason to be proud instead of humble, aggressive instead of subservient, courageous instead of docile. Very little was done in the field of civil rights from the time the first act was passed in April 1866 and amended in May 1870 until the Civil Rights Act of 1957, a period of 96 years. This act prohibited everyone from interfering with our right to vote by intimidation, threats, and coercion. Thank you. And gave to the Attorney General the power to institute suit in the name of the United States to enjoin such actions. This act was amended again in 1960, defining even further our rights and putting more teeth to the law. Under the authority of these legislative acts, many good things are happening. For instance, there are now investigations and court actions going on in about 100 counties. And there are also follow-up actions to ensure the court orders and carry out, and that those who came forward to assert their rights are not intimidated. 18 court suits have been instituted and order registrars and voting officials to allow qualified Negroes to vote. In Macon County, Alabama, the home of Tuskegee Institute, there are over 2,600 Negroes registered to vote, and they are voting. In some places, the way to the ballot is still not easy for Negroes. But this is a time of great excitement. Long delayed gains are being won. But as this progress is made, it is incumbent upon us to keep pace. When things are going well, we have a tendency to rest on our oars. I detect an air of complacency. I notice that something intangible yet insidious is happening to us. It seems that some of us are letting down our guard. We're resting on our laurels. If this is true, it can lead only to frustration and disaster and the undoing of much that has been accomplished. For each of us who becomes apathetic with respect to voting, by that much is our strength diminished. When it comes to voting, especially in the North, Our record is not always good. While Negroes in some places in the South are fighting for the right to vote and suffering insults, humiliation, and even worse, we sometimes in the North regard the vote lightly. We exercise it only if it is not too inconvenient to get to the polls, or if a friend is running for office. If it's not raining, we have to be reminded again and again to register. And as a result, when we sit down at the bargaining table, it is often without a trump card. Our political demands are ignored. The Negro in the North can take a lesson from his contemporaries in the South. The future of the Negro is not imminent or impending, it is now. From what we do now sets the course for the future. I implore you to keep your head high, keep your guard up. Take pride in the fact that we have accomplished more in 99 years than in any other people in the history of mankind. Thank you.
I'm going to talk about Merle McCurdy because I knew Merle McCurdy. I touched Merle McCurdy. He appeared before me, handsome. What a presence he had. But I'm not going to use a lot of superlatives. I'm going to talk about Merle and what he accomplished. You gave the message of Law Day USA. But many of the messages that we teach the kids are a lot of rhetoric. We all love the Declaration of Independence, and when I go to Philadelphia, I always go to the little red brick building, and kiss the stone. Because, you know, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. You know. And then the Constitution, we the people, and then one of the imperatives in that preamble to secure the blessings of liberty, and then the Bill of Rights, and then our Star-Spangled Banner, and then when we pledge allegiance to flag, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, what Merle McCurdy is all about is he gave definition to those words. Definition to those words. Because as I'm admitting more naturalized citizens who come to this country than any other federal judge, I naturalized 40,000 of them. They escaped so they could have freedom. Yet, what we did here at the Hubbard House, the Underground Railroad, those individuals who were entitled to the blessings of liberty and independence were seeking their freedom by being shipped off to Canada. What a paradox. What a contradiction. It wasn't until 1960 in the civil rights legislation, which Merle McCurdy, with his marauders and his vanguard, took an active role. And all of a sudden, because of the efforts of Merle McCurdy, we introduced those words of 1776, the Declaration. 1787, the Constitution. 1791, the Bill of Rights. It was through the Civil Rights Act of the 60s and Merle McCurdy taking the lead with his other U.S. attorneys in the country and Department of Justice that we introduced those documents, those testaments of freedom to the workplace of the United States, the schoolhouses of the United States, the buses of the United States, the hotels of the United States. You know, and Merle McCurdy was there. You can't imagine what this man from Ashtabula County what his contributions were in bringing about the reality rather than just the rhetoric of the Constitution of the United States. You have honored us, all of you, for being here today. I wish I could introduce all of the public officials. I'm really proud, Richard Dana, of all of the turnout of all of our public officials who have come here today to be with the McCurdy family. Merle really has made a great contribution. I am proud as a United States District Judge, and we were both on the same side. We were part of the Kennedy Johnson administration. And I can't tell you how proud I am to have been able to be in his presence, to hear his
I'd like to call upon Dr. Patterson here. He was good enough here to come up from Columbus here to give a proclamation from the State House. And so, Dr. Patterson, please, the floor is yours. Thank you so very much for coming.
My pleasure. I bring you this proclamation from the Ohio House, the 99th District, which Kanya is a part of, one of the many parts. But I want to thank you for coming home. In many ways, I feel Ashtabula County, and Jefferson in particular, was the birthplace of the Civil Rights Movement. Joshua Reed Giddings, Benjamin Franklin Wade, Charlie Garlick. I taught history at Jefferson High School for 29 years, and in the spring, I would take my AP classes to the cemetery on Ashtabula Street. Those three individuals are buried together, and Judge Lambros, you'll appreciate this, within a chipping shot of one another, all together. And there's another person who is important in this scenario too, early on, John Brown, who took a more active role in this movement. But there's another theme that runs through this. It's not just emancipation and equality for color. It was also about sex too, because if you think of Jefferson, and if you know the history of the Congregational Church, the first meeting that predated Seneca Falls took place in that church. So we have much to be thankful for, and we are grateful for you to come home, but let me leave you with this. Our work is not yet finished. We know that. There is still more to do. It is up to us to vote, to be politically active, to hold office, to support those who are in office, and never forget the dream. Amen. Amen.
Next call on our State Senator Capri Cafaro. So Capri, thank you for coming out.
It is truly an honor and a privilege to have just a small part in this presentation today. I certainly have learned a lot, and we could not be more proud as representatives of this community to have all of you as part of our history and our fabric here. I've been in office for almost 8 years. And I represent Trumbull, Ashtabula, and a small sliver of northeastern Geauga County to the west. And I bring this up simply because my first year in office, in 2007, about 6 months in, I had an opportunity, due to some, amateur historians in my district down in the city of Warren, to tour many of the Underground Railroad sites in my district. And so to have this sort of come full circle and reaffirm the rich history, and for the I don't want to mispronounce it, McCurdy family, is that correct? I mean, what an awe-inspiring American and Canadian dream that you have shown that anything is possible. What great pride, and you know, it's wonderful to hear from those like Judge Lambros who've had an opportunity to be graced by the presence of this wonderful first African-American U.S. Attorney in the Northern District of Ohio. I know technically it's the second, but still. I wish I had the opportunity to speak to my grandfather after knowing all of this about Merle, about this community, about its roots, because I have the sneaking suspicion that my grandfather, Bill Cafaro, may have had an opportunity to know Merle when he was the U.S. Attorney, and I wish I had an opportunity to get some stories from him, so I'm going to have to do some digging. That'll be my homework, to learn a little bit more. You've inspired us all. The story of the family has inspired us, and I just want to say thank you so very, very much for your commitment to your respective communities, and we carry on that great pride to have Merle as part of our history here in Ashtabula County. So thank you, and just a small token. This piece of paper does not do the story justice, but on behalf of the Ohio Senate, we thank you very much to salute your father. Absolutely.
Call upon Peggy Carlo, our county commissioner. Peggy Carlo.
You know, I am really humbled as I stand here before this wonderful family in honor of Merle. And on behalf of my fellow commissioners, who I'm sorry they could not be here and they don't know what they've missed, we would like to present you with a proclamation from the county. And we're honored that you're here. We're very proud of our county, and we're very proud to have all of your family here. So thank you very, very much. Thank you.
And next we'll call upon our new county prosecutor, Nick Irochi.
Call forward our caterer tonight, Phil Garcia, who happens to be a member of Conneaut City Council, and I'd like him to stand next to me as I read this proclamation. This is a proclamation from the Office of the City Manager. Whereas in commemoration of Law Day, the Ashtabula County Bar Association is honoring one of its own, civil rights legend Merle M. McCurdy, a Conneaut native. And whereas Merle was born in Conneaut, Ohio in 1912, he graduated from Conneaut High School, continued his education at Western Reserve, now Case Western University School of Law. Upon completing law school, Merle worked for Norman Selby Minor, a famed African-American attorney who trained Merle, as well as Representative Louis Stokes and Carl Stokes, the first African-American elected mayor of a major U.S. city. And whereas Merle also served as an assistant prosecuting attorney for Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office, and in 1960 was named as the first Cuyahoga County Public Defender and the first African-American to work at the Legal Aid Society of Cleveland. And whereas, in addition, Merle was appointed to serve in many positions throughout his career, including but not limited to United States Attorney for the Northern District of Ohio, General Counsel to the National Advisory Commission on Civil Disorders, the Kerner Commission, and the United States First Consumer Counsel. And whereas Merle led an extraordinary life which had a profound impact on civil rights in this country. And whereas for its Law Day commemoration, the Ashtabula County Bar Association will be hosting an event honoring Merle McCurdy at the Hubbard House on Friday, May 2nd, 2014, with numerous members of the McCurdy family present. And whereas at the time of the event, an original piece of artwork depicting Merle M. McCurdy's life, commissioned by the Ashtabula County Bar Association by renowned artist Dan Bridey, will be unveiled. The original work will be forever displayed at the Ashtabula County Courthouse to commemorate the efforts of the civil rights leaders from Ashtabula County. Now therefore, the City of Conneaut, Ohio wishes to join the Ashtabula County Bar Association in honoring and recognizing civil rights legend and Conneaut native Merle M. McCurdy. Signed by Timothy Eggleston, Conneaut City Manager.
Wow. That is
There's a number of thank yous that we owe here, so we certainly want to thank Phil Garcia for the wonderful food here tonight. Our Law Day Committee that included Nick Irochi, Marie Lane, Cecilia Cooper, Dean Topoloff, Diana Perry, and I also want to invite the person who was the inspiration here for all of this. A few years ago, there was a judge here named Judge Albert Mackey who came up with an idea of, should we maybe honor our civil rights legends here from Ashtabula County? And I think it's only fitting that Judge Mackey, that you award here the two prints here to Brenda and Howard. We have a little bit here of Canada, U.S. We're going to forgive Canada for burning the White House here, so we're going to try to bring the family together here tonight. But Judge Mackey, would you be so kind to make this presentation?
All right.
I think we have learned tonight our common humanity, and we are not Canadians from the United States or from Ohio, but we share values and virtues, and I'm very, very pleased to present the photos to Brenda and Howard.
It is amazing.
So I want to thank all of you for coming and being a part of this very special event. What brings me great joy is the fact that we have 23 members of the McCurdy family from far and wide that came here. Thank you so very much. Thank you.